Hello everyone, welcome to this Maya to Substance Painter and back tutorial series. This is the engineer from Team Fortress that we've been working on from a previous project. We're going to be using it as an example on how to send things over and how to bring things back and some of the do's and don'ts for preparing your model for Substance Painter. Okay, so this is our low-res model. As you can see, all the things that go on him, I brought off to the side. This is called an explosion style setup. Basically, what you do is you take all your pieces that are included in your textures through your UVs, and you have them all kind of stacked to where they're not right next to each other. And what this does makes to where when it bakes inside Substance Painter, that there isn't any bleeding between the UV shells. So this here doesn't bleed onto this, and this doesn't bleed onto the helmet or onto the head of the character. It just makes it to where you don't have any issues with having these things close to each other. So here's all the UV islands. You can tell they're all in this 1x1 space. If they're not in the 1x1 space, Substance Painter won't work out with this at all. So make sure that your UV islands are in this 1x1 area inside the UV space. Also, this is, as you can tell, this is not just the body. This is also the pouch, the glove, the cord, the glasses, the helmet. All of this is included in this one area. Combine them all down. And the reason why I did that is so that when I bake this out of Substance Painter, that it will bake out one texture map that will cover all three or all of my objects here, versus just one or three texture packs, three texture files per object. So if we were to go the optimized way to where everything looked the best they could and they were all in their 1x1 area, this could be as many as, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 3. It'd be 24 files to render off this one guy, which is pretty heavy for one character. So I combine them all down to one. This makes it to where when you're rendering using them in a game engine, it only uses 3 files versus 24. So let's go ahead and send this thing over to Substance Painter. So first is what I do is select the model like this and go to File, Export Selection, and I've already done this, so it would be Team Fortress Low is what I'm calling this because it's the low resolution version. Now I also did do a high, and you can do this in Maya or you can do it in Substance Painter. It's up to you. So for the high needs to be in the same exact position as your low. So you can't have like your low here, then move the high off to the side and work on your high. They need to be overlapped because that's the way that the baker is going to do things. It's going to bake onto the high and then project the details down to the low. So if they're not in the same spot, this won't work. So my high, if I click on my layer down here that says high, you'll see that it pops in right here. And basically all I did to my high, if I turn my low off for a second, is that I just added some edge loops around here so it smoothed off some of this stuff for the clothing. I also smoothed some of these straps, and I combined the straps down so that they're one object. Other than that, I really haven't done a whole lot. I mean, I did add some extra edge loops to the knee pads and the pants, and then I smoothed the entire object. So you can add the additional geometry you feel like you need to make it to where it looks soft and sharp in the areas you want. Okay, so I also exported my high. So my high, and the high doesn't need UVs, just an FYI. So the high is just a 3D projector for Substance Painter to be able to project down onto the UVs of the low. So I don't have to worry about remapping of the UVs or any of that kind of stuff. So File, Export Selection, and here is the Team Fortress high that is this file here. Okay, so those are both set up. Now we can go ahead and jump into Substance Painter. But before we do that, I do want to show you something else that I did, and this is just kind of in preparation so that I can see how things will look as I'm working inside Substance Painter, is that I also have a file here called Together. So Together is all the low resolution pieces put back together, and since they're sharing one material, this makes it to where what I can do is just create one material for this Together object, assign favorite material, Lambert, and basically all the objects will be using this same material. We'll say textures, or let's do engineer Lambert. So then one material covers everything. I don't have to plug them into a bunch of little things here. This is all good to go. Okay, so I can go ahead and now go over to Substance Painter. I already had that loaded up. Let's go ahead and just pop over there. Okay, so this is the 2018 version of Substance Painter. You guys may be using a new version of it. If you just downloaded Substance Painter, you're probably in 2020 or above or below. I don't know. But the thing is that this still works exactly the same. Some things may be in different spots, but they are still operating the same. So what we need to do is first go to File and New. And this is where we get to pull in our low resolution files. We're going to go to Select, and we're going to go to Team Fortress Low, and just hit Open. And we'll hit OK. All right, so then it'll pop in here. There it is. The way that you maneuver yourself around inside of Substance Painter is just like Maya. So Control, left mouse button, drag will let you rotate around your scene. Control, middle mouse button, or your mouse wheel will let you drag your screen. And I'm sorry, I've been saying Control, Alt. I'm on a PC. Alt, right mouse button will let you zoom in and out. Okay, so now we need to get into some setup before we can go in here and actually start working. So before you can start doing texturing inside Substance Painter, first what you need to do is bake a texture set that Substance Painter uses to generate its procedural textures. So if you look over here on the right, you'll see that there is two tabs. One says Layers, one says Texture Set Settings. I want to go into Texture Set Settings. And right now you can see down here where it says Bake Mesh Maps, Normal, all these maps down here. There's nothing in here yet. So we're going to go to Bake Mesh Maps. This is something we have to do to begin with. Okay, so ID map, that's not something we're currently using, so I'm going to uncheck that one. 2K is a good starting one. We can go bigger later on, but I want to start with 2K. More than 2K can cause your computer to slow down quite a bit, depending on what you're working with. Substance Painter is quite a demanding program. Okay, so now let's bring, what I really want to do is I want to bring in my high resolution mesh. So where it says high definition mesh, I'll just click on this little piece of paper here. And I already was in this before, so I had already navigated to where the folder was on my Maya project that had my high resolution in there. So I'm just going to pick Team Fortress High and say Open. Okay, so there we go. You can have multiple files inside your high. It isn't just one, so if you have like 10 different high resolution meshes for each one of these objects, you can put them all in here at the same time and bake it down. Okay, so that's good. Now we can go ahead and start to bake. And Substance Painter does a great job. It's really fast. We'll just go ahead and hit Bake Lambert 1 Mesh Maps at the bottom right here. And I'll go through, and what it's doing is just baking them internally. This isn't like they're dumping them into a file folder that you're going to use for sending over to Maya or Unity or whatever. This is all for just internal processing for its procedural textures. So if these were to come out black at all, that would mean that your UVs are not in the one-by-one area. You can put your UVs back yet. So that's a big red flag if it happens to you. I can already see the minor right because I can see that the normal maps that from that high resolution mesh baked the straps into my character. That's something that I was after, right? So that looks good. Okay. So now what I want to go through is just how we can do texturing this. And I'm going to be very surface on this. I don't want to go into the whole let's paint this thing from top to bottom right now. It's just how to get around inside Substance Painter, doing some of the nuts and bolts stuff. And then in the next lesson, we'll go through and paint this thing with a finished mindset. And so let's start with the layers. So on the left side here, if you've used Photoshop before, this will look very familiar to you, and it operates very similar to Photoshop. So to begin with, you'll see over here there is these options, and this one here is creating an empty layer. This one here is a fill layer. Those are your two main ones here. We have some other stuff here like creating masks, creating effects, creating folders for your different layers, and then making a smart material if you want to out of your layers. Smart materials we'll get into in just a few. But let's start out by just creating a empty layer. So let's drop one of those in our scene. Stacking order is important. And then down below here, you can see it says size, flow, stroke, all that stuff. If you scroll down here a little further, you'll see it says material. And what they're referring to here is what are you going to be painting with? Are you painting with color, height, rough, metal, normal. What attributes do you want your brush to allow to stroke? So with these all open like this, it means that if you scroll down here, you'll see that there's base color options, there's height options. You can paint with height, you can paint in roughness and metallic. Metallic being shiny, roughness will affect your metallicness, but it can also paint in texture. And then you have your normal, and your normal paints in height as well, just like your height map will, but it adds better shadow and it's more optimized. So typically inside of Unity, you'll use normal map over a height map. You might sometimes use them in conjunction, but you usually will pick a normal map at the minimum. Okay, so I know that all those are options in here. How do we actually start painting with some of this stuff? Well, to begin with, I could say I want to just go to where it says color here, and I'll click on it and say, let's just paint red just for testing stuff out. Okay, so if I go over here, I could just already start painting red in here and kind of just going for it, right? Cool, it's going on there, no problem. Now, if you want to erase the red, if you look over here on the left, there are some options like this one here. This is your eraser. I can come back over here and just erase the red that I've just put on there. Okay, so those are your back and forth, fairly easy, straightforward stuff, right? Okay, let's go a little deeper. Let's say that you want a different brush. To begin with, you look down here or up at the top up here, and you see where it says alpha. This is your brush. So if I was to click on this, it'll give you some different options. You can go into your alphas and use a different one if you want to. But usually what I recommend doing is instead going to over here on the left, underneath your shelf, there's actually a whole tab called brushes. And here you can pick which kind of brush you want to use. So let's say that you want to do dots. You can come over here and start just painting dots on him. Or maybe you wanted to do dirt splashes, and you can just come in here and dirty him up. Or maybe it's cracks you're after. Go in here and crack them up. So those are all how that works. So some other things that you might want to know though is also that, let's say like you don't plan on using normal, metallic, rough, or height on any of this stuff, right? Okay, so then you want to turn those off because you don't need to paint with them, so why have them on? So you can say this layer does not have height, rough, metallic, or normal. So that's all you're doing is painting in color. And that'll make it to where you don't accidentally affect any of these other layers that may be underneath what you're currently painting. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's say that I want to get rid of this layer. You can just click on this trash can, that'll dump the layer. Okay, so I want to go back to my normal brush now. So you can try to go through it over here and go to your alpha and try to find your brush. But it's much easier if you come over here and just go to Basic Soft, and that will bring you back to the same one you started out with. Okay, so that's your nuts and bolts of painting. I'm going to go through procedural textures really quick, and then we're going to stop the video and we'll start the next video with just painting him from top to bottom and giving him a finished look. So let's say that you want to go to your Smart Materials. Let's try out some of those. Okay, so for my Smart Materials, let's see what some of our options are. We have wood options down here, we have steel options, we have rubber, we even have skin. So let's say that I'm going to put some skin on him. Okay, you see how it has normal texture already built in there. So I can say, well, that's cool, but I don't want it all over all of them. So how do I take care of that? Well, let's say that I only want it to be where the skin's at. Okay, how would I take care of that then? What I would do is put a mask on this particular layer, and it only allowed to be where I say it can be. So I would press right mouse button and go to add a black mask. So black mask hides everything. And then down here, you say, well, black hides, but white reveals. So if I come over here and start to paint with white, I can then paint where I want this skin to be at. So I can just say specifically, this is going to be where the skin's at, okay? Or if I actually end up down here in this area, again, black hides, white reveals. So I can just come over here where it says grayscale and click on this it'll go straight over to that side. You can also manually drag it back and forth, and then just erase the parts that got on something that you didn't want to be on. So that's how you take care of that. Let's look at another one here. They also have, I know they have some thread ones on this. Fabric, yeah. Let's say, do we want military fabric on this guy? Probably not. That's burlap, leather. That's sci-fi. Let's just go leather for now. Or burlap. We'll do burlap. So let's take burlap, drag and drop it on him, and there it is, burlap. See if there's any options inside burlap for us to mess with this. So if we click on the folder, it'll open it up. And we have a bunch of options inside here, and these are really where it comes into how good you are with Substance Painter, because you can come in here and start affecting sliders and materials up and down here. And really knowing what all these do is what kind of defines you as knowing if you're a good Substance Painter artist or not. So you can go ahead and just uncheck some of these and see what they do. So if I uncheck height details, you don't see a lot of change. How about edge details? Okay, so you have those, pop those ones away. Surface details, you see how those ones add. And then you can see over here there's multipliers and how much this is affecting. If it's 34 or down to 0, you can go back and just test some of these sliders out and see how much of a percentage these are actually doing. So this is where you want to experiment and kind of decide what you want this material to look like. You could probably also come down here and see the base color is this yellow color, but I don't like that yellow color. Let's say that I want it to be more of a dark color. Maybe right in there is probably good. Maybe with like a more of a bluish tone, bluish hue kind of right in there. So that's an option you can go for. Now that I'm happy with that for now, I can say I also want a mask on this one. So right mouse button and go to add a black mask. Okay, so now I can go ahead and paint in where I want this material to be at. So this is where you kind of can go through and paint your character and have them look exactly the way you want. Now keep in mind, like I said, there is a stacking order here. So if this is on top, if I paint up and over this, you'll see how it now paints right over the skin. So keeping that in mind as you're going forward. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these two for now. Okay, and the last thing I want to do before I send off is I just want to show you how you export and import back into Maya. So if I was to go to File, Export, Select, or Export Textures here, I'm using the Unity 5 standard metallic export. You can find this underneath your config. This will basically optimize the materials for Unity already. Now this isn't for Maya, so some things won't be perfectly transferring over, but it does get you pretty darn close. Okay, so where do I want these to go to? I'll click on this one here and say that this is going to be on my PC. We're going to go to my my desktop and looking for Team Fortress. Select that one. Actually, we need to go inside the source images folder of Team Fortress. We'll select that folder, and then we'll just export it. And it's really fast. You see how fast that is? It's already done. And that was just for the normal map, though. We didn't have any other textures. I deleted off those other ones that I made. So I can say, okay. Let's go jump back over to Maya for a second before we end this. So if we go into Maya, and we go to the Lambert here, and we say, okay, underneath the bump mapping, because that's the normal textures that we want, I'm going to go to the checker box on this one, and we're going to click on File, and it gives us these two different nodes that pump into the bump map. So this is how much bump and what kind of bump we're using, and then this is the file. So if I go to File here, go to the folder, and then click on, you see I've piped all three of these in here. We don't need these because you can tell there's nothing in the albedo, there's nothing on metallic. There is stuff in the normal though. We can go ahead and pump that in now. So we'll say open, and this is what your normal map will look like. It's this purple weird looking thing. We'll say open. Okay, so to begin with, looks kind of weird. He's got like some weird stuff going on here. But also we don't have some things in place yet. We don't have what kind of bump it's using. Right now it just says bump. But I think that tangent space normals is what Substance Painter uses. So let's go ahead and switch to that. So that looks better. Now you can see that there's the straps baked in. Now there is some stuff that we need to clean up. There's some artifacts here on the face, but we'll deal with those once we actually paint the texture. This is more just showing you how you bring this in and start to connect things back in. And some stuff where you'll see some artifacts, like, or some things where like there seems to be seams on it, like how it is right here. These are all just in the preview, so when it renders, usually you won't see those. Let's go ahead and just test that out just to see if I'm right or if that's something we'll have to fix down the road. So go to Maya Software Renderer, and we'll just go ahead and kick off a preview render here. Okay, so yeah, you can't see there's any seams now. There is some stuff that's going on with the normal map we still want to fix, but for the most part, that's okay. These artifacts right here behind the ear, those are from the ear projecting onto the actual surface of the back of the head. So those are one of the things that we'll have to actually fix in the normal map before we send it over. Okay, so this is where we'll go ahead and stop the lecture for today. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.